Hey, Mr. Shiner, we are officially live. You may proceed with the opening exercises.
Very well. I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit for February 23rd, 2021. I'd like to welcome everybody tonight who is here, and we'll proceed with the Pledge of Allegiance. There, we got it on our screen now. Okay. I pledge allegiance
to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation,
under
God,
indivisible,
liberties and justice for all.
All right, before we proceed any further, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in honor of a personal care assistant, Terry Haynott, who worked and served in the Clearview School for us. And for reasons I'm not personally aware of, she has passed away. And I know it's with great sadness, and a lot of people will miss her. So with that, let's please take a moment of silence. All right. Christy, could we proceed with the roll call, please?
Mr. Shiner?
Here.
Mrs. Maines? You still with us, Mrs. Maines?
Here.
Okay. Ms. Beveridge?
Here.
Ms. Bretz?
Here.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez? Ms. Sioka? Mr. Feldbush?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Kendris? Mr. Leonard? Ms. Mock? Mr. Pekarsik?
Here.
Ms. Schmidt?
Here.
Mr. Schrock?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Ms. Thomas? Ms. Urban?
Here.
12 present, 5 absent.
Very well. So that means we've got a quorum. All right. We did hold an executive session prior to this meeting on a personnel item. As far as citizens' comments on agenda items, we have received no comments this evening. So we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of minutes. I need a motion to approve the minutes of the January 26th, 2021 meeting. And a
So
second.
moved, Urban.
Second, Feldbush.
Okay, very well. I guess we can proceed with this without a roll call. So by voice vote, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, we'll move on to financial reports. Here, there are 3 reports. And they're numbered FR-2021 TAC 31 through FR 2021 TAC 33. I need a motion to approve these 3 financial reports in the second.
So moved.
Second, Pekarsik.
Very well, thank you. Is there any further discussion on any of these reports? Hearing that there is none, we need a roll call vote, please, Christy.
Mrs. Maines?
Yes.
Ms. Beveridge? Ms. Bretz?
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Scheinert,
Yes.
12 yes, motion's carried.
Very well. On to committee reports. We'll start off with the executive services. I guess I'd like to report that there's been a lot going on in the IU relative to changes in our the rules that we're complying with. As more folks are coming back to school in person. We've had some of that going on, which is great. And around Westmoreland County, there's been a lot of changes in these areas. And so I guess my observation is that maybe some of the pressures associated with fighting COVID that we've been up against might be beginning to relax a little bit right now. So along those lines, I see a lot of changes going on in how things are going, and in general, I see the school working well. So again, my thanks to everybody involved, and looks like we might actually get through this year. So with that, I'll move on to other committees. Curriculum services. Any report there?
I had to work late tonight, so I missed our committee meeting at 6:15. Is there anybody else on the committee that would like to submit a report? Then there is no report tonight, Mr. Shiner.
All right, thank you. How about financial services? I know Bill was at the same meeting I was.
Yeah, we met briefly and Lynn did a nice job, nice presentation there. We did a brief look at the audited 2019-20 financial results and the fund balance update for an item coming up in today's agenda, which is FS 2021-007, an item for adding money to the committed fund balance for the 5-year capital project plan. I think we believe it's a great approach and the right approach, and it leaves us with the balance, or unassigned fund balance, still looks in pretty good shape. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Mr. Feldbush. Student services, Sharon Mock. I guess
Mr.
Mike Pekarsik or Heather Smith. Any comments?
Mike Pekarsik, on behalf of the Student Services Committee, Dr. Thomas spent time this evening reviewing the scope of service in early childhood with over 100 students being served ages 3 to 5, whether it be special ed or speech services, OT, PT, etc. He also talked about the itinerant service of in-home teachers and the coaching and consulting model that is used with the early childhood group, the in ages 3 through 5. Talked about the speech therapy that is provided by the 26 speech language pathologists in the early intervention program. There's over 1,100 students being served. And talked about the school age programs, whether they be at a particular school like Bell Vernon or the partial hospitalization or the youth shelter, and how there's been a virtual approach to much of that during the pandemic. And he also talked about itinerant services at school age services for speech services, as well as deaf and hard of hearing and vision impairment, and capped it off with a review of the services being given at Clearview School for 91 students from the sending schools. And I thank him for all that information that he shared and the progress that's being made for the students.
It's a good report. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, finally, we'll get to technology infrastructure services. Mrs. Beveridge or Mr. Duff, have any comments? I think, is that Mrs. We're having trouble hearing you, Gretchen.
A review of our
So, Mr. Shiner,
I think that's pretty difficult to hear.
yeah.
I don't know if you can hear Gretchen, but we've had having trouble, so I think we're gonna stop this report. Okay,
Is Mr. Jones maybe able to speak to that since he was also there? It looks like she just dropped off.
okay.
So maybe, I know Mr. Jones was there. Maybe he has some insight to what she was sharing.
Yeah.
Not to put you on the spot. Sorry, Mr.
No,
Clemens.
that's okay. Now we were able to go over and look at a good bit of like the Google and the cloud and being able to house everything under one umbrella. Really enjoyed hearing the communicating on all levels, just, in a moment's notice, kind of all of our worlds getting turned upside down and being able to communicate with everyone, from the families to the students, and how that went. The amount of users on the Zoom platform and what we've been able to provide to and outsource to different folks to make sure they can keep moving forward. Went over a lot of Adobe and Office 365 was a good thing. And then really looking towards the future and looking at that migrate to the Amazon and the Microsoft Azure stuff. So that was really intriguing to see as far as like the big picture and keeping us moving forward on the technology side.
Okay, very well, thank you. All right, Executive Director report. Dr. Conway.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Shiner. I very much appreciate the opportunity. First, I just wanted, Christy and I wanted to just share with the board that please expect to have a statement of financial interest sent to you for completion. That is something that we're required to have on file each and every year by our board members. And so, Christy, you'll be sending them out probably sometime this week, early next week.
Yes, definitely this week or next week. Probably I will also include, just keep in mind, this is for last calendar year. So it's for 2020. I also will, if you have a statement from the year before, I'll include a copy of that so you know what you have filed in the past.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Christy, for organizing that for us. The main thing I wanted to talk about this evening as part of my report, as you know, on the board agenda, we're going to be asking the board to support the general operating budget that was introduced last month. And around this time, I always like to share an analysis of how our general operating budget compares to other intermediate units across the state, as well as specifically to those IUs who are contiguous to us. So in Agenda Manager, you'll see this attachment available to you. And basically it's an analysis. So this very first page lists all of the intermediate units 1 through 29 organized by number. And of course, we're the 7th intermediate unit within the state. And this just shows you the number of districts that each IU serves, the total student enrollment, and then that's broken down by public school enrollment and non-public school enrollment, followed by the general operating budget. And I always put our current year as well as the proposed year. So you can kind of see very similar. And then also, most importantly, I always want to share what the total district contribution is for all the other IUs. So as you can see, we are right around that 191, which is actually a little bit lower than it was last year. And last year, somebody had a great suggestion of, well, what does that equate to per public school enrollment? So as you can see, what we're proposing in terms of district contribution actually equals to about a $4 per student contribution is what that equates to. So the following pages then take that same data and then it organizes it in different ways. So on page 2, you'll see total enrollment. So in this page, it's the same data, just organized or sorted by a different way. Obviously, Philadelphia is the largest IU because they have their own IU, and then Montgomery County, and then a close third is Allegheny Intermediate Unit number 3. All of the brown rows represent the IUs that surround us, just to kind of give you a comparison of that. So as you can see, like Allegheny Intermediate Unit, 24% of their total general operating budget comes from the district contribution. Where if you look at our intermediate unit, the total district contribution only makes up 2.8% of what we're proposing, for this. So it just kind of, you can kind of see by public school enrollment or total enrollment there. The next page organizes it by the size of the general operating budget. And as you can see, Chester County has the largest general operating budget at $166 million, to the smallest being IU9, which is Seneca Highlands in the northern central of it. What that basically tells you with Chester County is they include a heck of a lot more in their general operating budget, where what we do is we have a general operating budget, but also then other budgets that we then utilize our total $36 million in a total budget there. So again, just a different way of looking at how we rate when it comes to size of our general operating budget as it compares to others. The next page then is the percent of general operating budget, meaning the district contribution as percent of total general operating budget. So I'm very proud to share that we are close to the bottom when it comes to the total district contribution and its percentage of the general operating budget. There are IUs that do not have any district contribution. As you can see from Philadelphia on down to Central IU 10, you can see that those districts do not contribute any dollars to the general operating budget. So if you look at our partners that surround us, look at Allegheny IU and the percent of their general op, as well as Intermediate 1, as well as Aaron IU. The one that's below us is to our east, and that would be that would be Appalachia IU number 8. And we're, close to where they're at. So anyway, just another way of just looking at how we compare to others within our state. And then the last page just shows per public school enrollment. So as you can see, we are, except for those who have 0 contributions, we are, of course, tied for below those who do at $4 a piece, and if you look at some of the higher ones, $49 per $40, that's pretty significant compared to what we're offering. So the conclusion is that we do a very nice job of providing high quality services for the size of our general operating budget, and most importantly, the district contributions that are made and still being able to do it efficiently and of high quality. So again, that's just something in a yearly analysis that we attempt to do, and always like to share that with the board because a lot of people don't understand how other IUs operate, and it just kind of gives you a little snapshot of how they do business. And I believe how lucky we are to have supportive districts, as well as not requiring high contributions from our districts to operate in our general operating budget. So, Mr. Crowder, that actually concludes, unless there are any questions of that analysis.
I do have one. It suggests to me that there's differences from IU to IU across the state in what they do or what services they provide. And I don't personally have a very good idea about how Allegheny IU3 differs in what they do from what we do. Why do they have, I know, a higher cost to their contributing districts than we do? Do you have any insight as to why they might? I don't want to pick on them, but I want to get some idea of why there are differences.
Yeah, I would say, the majority of costs go back to personnel. And so they do offer different services that we do not have the capacity to do. So for instance, their human resources department, now they are a much larger organization than us, I think is quadruple the size of ours. They also have a department, I know, for instance, Berks County IU, which I consider Berks to Philly as we are to Pittsburgh. That intermediate unit has a marketing and creative design department that has 3 individuals. And what they do is they provide services for not only the IU, but also the district when it comes to communication tools and documents and newsletters and things like that. So I think the best way to clarify it would be they have more personnel and therefore more different types of services that we simply currently don't have the capacity to do, for that. Some intermediate units have grant writers that are on staff, and that's what they do. That's something that we do not currently have on staff for that. Now, another kind of observation would be the larger the organization, the larger support staff that you need to support it. So for instance, they're going to need a much larger financial services division personnel dealing with that budget versus what our budget is. But I think too, that we have to look, intermediate units, have been in business for 49 years. And in fact, we're celebrating our 50th year of existence since 1971. And there was no playbook for each intermediate unit to follow. And so you had 29 entities that were created that interpreted the code differently and grew their business according to how they thought they should run. There was little guidance to what the business model should look like for intermediate units in 1971. And so what's acceptable in one IU in terms of district contributions can be a lot different than in other intermediate units. Case in point, those intermediate units that have 0 district contributions, it would be one heck of a fight for those intermediate units to ever ask for a district contribution, because the history has been they don't contribute to the general operating budget. So I think history plays a large part in how IUs have come to what it looks like today in this chart.
Well, that suggests the question of standardization. I can see where standardization in some services may be desirable across a whole state, whereas the freedom to do what you need to do in your area is also valuable. So is there any commonalities like, special ed? Maybe they all do special ed, but if I look at Allegheny Intermediate Unit with a 129,000 total enrollment, Is that all special ed, or are they doing something different than we're doing?
Well, I think the commonalities of all intermediate units is they all offer some type of special ed services. And that has changed over the years from providing teachers in districts to consultative type of services to actually running schools, within those intermediate units. So that has changed over time, but all intermediate units provide some level of special ed service. Curriculum services is another area that is a common among all intermediate units. However, some intermediate units, you sunk a lot of effort into creating that as part of their business models, where other intermediate units did not. Even though they have a base curriculum service, you have some intermediate units that went way beyond others when providing curriculum assessments, audits, writing curriculum for school districts, and things like that. I think a trend that we're starting to see among intermediate units, not necessarily a standardization among all 29, but we're starting to see pockets of intermediate units beginning to share services with one another. And so they're realizing that we could combine maybe curriculum services that 3 people can serve 2 intermediate units versus each intermediate unit having 2 people to do it. So that's an area of exploration that intermediate units are starting to look into when it comes to that. But yeah, hopefully I answered your question. That was a very good question.
No, you certainly have answered my question. And what comes to my mind when I think about this is we have E-Academy, and the E-Academy's been good to us, particularly with what's been going on this year with COVID. It's been a valuable asset to the IU. Do all IUs have E-Academies, or do they go together with other IUs to have the equivalent of E-Academies? That seems to me to be a wise thing to do at an intermediate unit level.
Yeah, well, I will say, and I know Tim will be happy when I say it this way, nothing compares to our E-Academy in the model in which we have, where we work with individual districts, train their teachers, have them develop their courses, and then that district can own those courses. And then others from outside can take those courses and the district gets revenue from that. We're unlike any other online product or service throughout the state. Other intermediate units, they are going down the path of using third-party content where they're paying companies to develop content, and then the intermediate units are then serving as a broker to provide that service to their districts, but they're using third-party content. Our E-Academy is a true grassroots effort, and it's continuing to grow, and more districts are starting to raise their eyebrows, like, I like that model. I own the content, I develop it, and I can make revenue from it. And so I think you're going to see continued growth in our E-Academy when it comes to number of districts that are going to come on board, but also the different types of courses that are going to be offered, not just for students, but also for educators across the Commonwealth. So Tim, hopefully I did that justice.
And I like the fact that we have teachers within our various districts who are E-Academy instructors, rather than having it farmed out to some third-party provider. That helps for reasons like union contracts, for example.
Yep.
So, okay, thank you. I appreciate that insight.
You're quite welcome. And that concludes the executive director's report.
All right. I don't see Mr. Leonard here this evening, so I don't think we have a foundation report, but we still have on the agenda that there is a March 9th meeting at 7:30 in the morning for the foundation. So we'll look forward to hearing that next time. All right, so we can move on to item 11. It's the next item where we have items to vote on. This is human resources. In this section, we have 4 items, HR 2021 TAC 44 through HR 2021 TAC 47. Is there any discussion on these particular items? Okay, hearing that there is none, I'd like to have a motion and a second to approve these 4 items.
So moved, Feldbush.
Second, Schmidt.
Very well, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we'd approve these items. Are there any additional discussion before we vote? All right, hearing none. Christie, ready for a roll call vote, please.
Ms. Spretz,
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez,
I'll ask her to unmute. We'll come back to her, Christine.
okay,
Yes.
Oh, there she is.
thank you. Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
11 yes, motions carried.
Very well. On to item 12, curriculum services. In this section, we have 2 items, CS 2021 TAC 14 and CS 2021 TAC 15. Is there any discussion on these items? Okay, hearing none. I need a motion and a second to approve these 2 items.
So
Motion.
moved, Urban.
Second, Callaway Rodriguez.
Okay, very well. Seconded that we approve these items. Again, is there any further discussion before we vote? Okay, hearing none. Christie, I think we need another roll call vote, please.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush, Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
okay, Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Spretz,
Yes.
11 yes, motions carried.
Okay, very well. On to financial services. Here we've got 3 items, FS 2021 TAC 6 through FS 2021 TAC 8. Is there any discussion on these items? Okay, I need a motion and a second to approve these 3 items.
So moved, Maines. Second, Bratz.
Very well. It's been moved and second that we approve these items. I'll just note that the first of these is our general operating budget for the 2021-2022 school year. So it's indeed an important item. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve these items. We need a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez.
Yes.
11 yes, motion's carried.
Very well. We can move on to student services. In this section, there are 5 items, SS 2021 TAC 30 through SS 2021 TAC 34. Is there any discussion on these 5 items? Okay, if not, I need a motion and a second to approve these items.
So moved, Pekarsik.
Second, Feldbush.
Very well, it's been moved and seconded to approve these items. Is there any further discussion before we vote? Hearing none. Christie, again, we need a roll call vote for this section, 5 items.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes?
Ms. Smains,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush.
Yes.
11 yeses, motion's carried.
Okay, very well. On to section 15. We have 2 items in this section. Items TIS 2021 TAC 9 through TIS 2021 TAC 10. Do either of these motions need to be pulled for further discussion? Okay. Therefore, I need a motion and a second to approve these 2 items.
So moved, Urban.
And
Second, Callaway Rodriguez.
Very well, thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve TIS 2021 TAC 9 and TIS 2021 TAC 10. Roll call vote, please, Christie.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Shiner,
Yes?
Ms. Smains,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Jones.
yes.
11 yes, motion's carried.
Very well, thank you. And then on to the school board. In this section, we've got 14 items. SB 2021 TAC 36 through SB 2021 TAC 49. It breaks down roughly as 3 policies that are being updated after their second reading. And we have 10 board operating guides that are up for approval. And the final item is a carryover of vacation time and paid off time for this the end of this year. So with that, are there any items here people would like to pull for further discussion?
Yeah, I have one I'd like to discuss. It's SB 2021-039. This is Bill Feldbush.
All right. Any others? Okay, therefore, I need a motion to approve and second for items 36 through 38 and 40 through 49.
So moved, Maines.
Second, Schmidt.
Okay, very well. Therefore, to approve all the items except for item 39, we need a roll call vote, please, Christie.
Ms. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mr. Schrock,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Ms. Urban,
Yes.
Mr. Scheinert,
Yes.
Ms. Maines,
Yes.
Ms. Bretz,
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez,
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush,
Yes.
Mr. Jones,
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik,
Yes.
11 yes, motion's carried.
All right. Mr. Feldbush, would you please discuss your concern with item 39?
Well, Jason's opening up there. It's the bottom of the first page. It's under 5 there, last paragraph. I'd like to see if we can strike the last sentence. The board will establish a calendar for reviewing policies. I don't know that we are going to do that or who's going to do it. I hate to be a stickler for some audit finding. I never did it.
Bill, I'm having trouble hearing you. Maybe if you got closer to the mic or something.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay, the last sentence on page 1 there, where
Yes.
it's highlighted. The board will establish a calendar for the reviewing policies. I'd like to have that stricken if we could, because I don't know that who's going to do it and when we're going to do it. And I hate for it to be a stickler item if we ever got audited and stuff. It says, when's your calendar for doing your policy review? Is that possible, Jason?
Yeah, actually, I tell you, I'm going to allow Crystal Edwards, if you could just weigh in on any issues from the legal side of striking that out.
I don't see any necessary issues with the legal side of taking that language out, but by establishing a calendar that helps to keep the board accounted for with updating the policies as it comes to be. If you're doing PSBA recommendations regularly and you have that subscription already, you can even just have the board adopt the calendar as PSBA is giving the recommendations. So you don't necessarily need by February 1, we will be doing these policies. By March 1, we will be doing these policies. You can make it, the board is adopting a calendar, establishing a calendar, and that calendar being what is recommended by PSBA. That makes sense.
Okay, it's my understanding that this is a new BOG for RIU. And since we're trying to round out our operating guides, they're all associated with particular policies. And now we're trying to institute them. This one's probably come from PSBA. This is probably based on a sample BOG. And so I'm not sure where those words come from. And I don't know if anybody here tonight might know. Does anybody have any insight as to why these words are in the one we got from PSBA?
Yeah, I'll just say that you are correct. This is the template that PSBA recommended for this particular operating guideline.
Well, I see Mr. Feldbush's point. I'm not particularly anxious to saddle ourselves with that sentence any more than you all. So I would agree to take it out. I was just searching to see if we might have any understanding. But if we don't have any understanding, then we'll take it out, and maybe we need to reconsider at a future date if something comes up that says we ought to do that. But right now, I think it's probably wise to not saddle ourselves with this requirement.
One thing to note, Mr. Feldbush, as I looked up policy 003, the very bottom of that policy, the board shall plan an annual evaluation of its functions. Oh, no, never mind. I was thinking an annual plan. Never mind. It's not associated with reviewing the policies. I did a quick search on calendar. nothing in 003 with that. So Attorney Edwards, would you recommend removing that or not recommend removing that particular citation?
If I were to speak for PSBA or take a hunch as to why that language was included, given my experience with other districts, not saying WIU 7 would be this way, of course, you would be an outlier in this, but some districts or schools, depending on the breakdown of it, will, if they don't hold themselves accountable, they get away from revising policies, and then 30 years goes by, they have the same policies. So my hunch is that's why PSBA includes this type of language, wanting the boards to be self-responsible and making sure that their policies are up to date. So from a legal standpoint, that particular sentence, I don't have an issue with removing, but just knowing that the board still, the legal side of not updating your policies can cause issues. But I don't think you need to hold yourself to a day-by-day calendar.
And if you look at that very first sentence, based on the changing conditions, needs, and goals, the board will periodically review the extent board procedures and policies and revise as necessary. So that does help hold the board accountable, that as conditions change and updates are recommended, then, and I totally understand your point, because there was a time that our policies were very outdated, and we did a major project to review those board policies to make sure that they were up to date.
So one thing that can help, if you don't want to set a calendar for the entire board to do, if the board wanted to consider creating a committee, that'd be a policy committee. They would be responsible for kind of staying up to date on policy changes and then advising the board of anything that would need to come up. That way it takes the responsibility off of the whole board as well with keeping up with it. It would just be on the committee if the board wanted to create one of those. But you don't necessarily need to keep it to a calendar date.
But it's my observation that what's happening now is that when PSBA updates either a policy or an operating guide, we get the updates to their basic, I'll call it outline, or their basic example that they provide. And so when we get those, we're in the habit of going through. Now, the first three policies that are in this section that we're voting on, and we already approved, the only thing that changed in them were references or citations. The word, the text itself didn't change. So it says to me, well, we're being diligent. When we get updates from PSA, we put them on the list and we go to it and we get through them. So the way we're working right now doesn't give me much pause that we're going to run into a problem. Now, having said that, I have seen situations where problems have come up, but for some reason, I think where I'm on the board, they've become more conscientious of this. I don't know if other districts are doing it the same way, but if they're doing it the same way, the fact that we get updates periodically from PSBA causes us to keep ours up to date.
Right, and that's what most boards who have that subscription continue with doing. It's just a matter of thinking in the future, again, either way, if you want to take it out or leave it in the sentence here, just thinking, will the future board always continue to update the policies? But that could always be a question for the future board.
So then is it okay if we decide to strike this sentence right now, and when we vote on it, it will be with this sentence stricken?
Yes.
Okay, then I think that's what I'd like to do.
It's just an operating, so that's fine. It's not necessarily standard ones with the first, second readings. That'll be fine, as long as there's no objection from anyone.
I really don't see the need to strike it. I mean, we review the policies on a regular basis, and why can't we just fill in the calendar as we review them? And then that way we have the calendar if we should get questioned about it. And that really keeps us honest, knowing, and it's a nice way of organizing what we've done each month with policy. I don't see a problem with that.
If we don't strike it, Sue, what are you thinking we would do? I'm a little confused.
Well, just about, almost every month or every other month, we have policies on there to vote on that we have reviewed and had a second reading, et cetera, et cetera. Why can't we just create a calendar and each month put on there which policies we did and keep it running? And we don't have to, she said we don't have to schedule it in advance. We can just keep a calendar noting what we looked at that month and what we passed that month, and we have it available if anyone should question. We review our policies.
I think that sounds like a good idea, but I think my understanding is this sentence differs from that, because this says the board will establish a calendar.
I also read it as a pre-planning notion versus a recording of what was already reviewed.
So I guess I think, Sue, we could, if we struck this sentence, we could clearly do what you're suggesting, maintain on a calendar what we have done. So we have that to look back to.
Yeah, I would just hate to say that we were going to do this on June and there's no PSB update until, say, July or August. That's when we would look at it for changes. I'm going to guess that we're probably not going to have too many changes throughout the course of the year, except for PSBA changes or
Right.
Yeah.
And Attorney Edwards, I think some districts look at a 3-year cycle for their policies. They take all of their policies, they're divided up by 3 or divided up by 4 years.
Yep.
And what they do then is, year 1, they always look at this policy, this set of policies. Year 2, they always look at this set of policies.
Right.
With or without PSBA updates. It's just a healthy exercise for districts that they go through kind of each year, with different sets of policies.
And that's where a committee can come in handy, so that the board isn't tasked with doing the entire review of every policy.
Right.
And what the district can do with the committee or without is chunk it up and do, say, the zeros in, say, February, and then do the 100s in, say, April, and just sort of break it up a little bit. And the benefit of doing policy review in addition to what PSBA updates is it keeps the district and the board aware of what their policies are in one part. And then in the second part, it allows the board to tailor or be mindful of the school's culture and what the school's specific needs would be versus the PSBA's general recommendations. So you can tailor it. It gives you the opportunity to review more on the individual level versus on the mass level.
Well, what does the board think about striking this sentence, but in its place saying a record of board approvals of policies and board operating guides and approval dates should be maintained?
My opinion on this is that I think if we're going to change it to that, it's almost to some extent saying the same thing. And I don't necessarily think we have to get as specific as saying, we have to set this date on the calendar and this date, as long as we have some type of a, so many year or 1 year or 2 year rotation or whatever. I don't think it's asking us, we have to have like a date with a star on the calendar. I think we can be a little bit, vague, or it's a little lenient there. I think we're trying to change a sentence that we're rewording to almost meaning the same thing to some degree. And I think that PSBA put it there for a reason. They generally have good, backup as to why they word things certain ways. And I really don't think that we need to change it, but that's up to everybody else as well.
So I think what I'm hearing is that most of us, except maybe Michelle, would be agreeable to take the sentence out. I think, Michelle, you might prefer to leave it in, would you not?
I just feel like if we change it to, to say something different, a lot of what I'm hearing sounds similar to what's there. So do we really need to change it?
I agree with Michelle, but I don't care if you want to, I don't see a big problem taking it out. But maybe do we want to table this one and take a look at it again?
I think that might be worthwhile. What do you think, Dr. Conway? Can we table this one and look for some alternative ways to keep track of our updates so we don't get in arrears on them?
Yeah. If it's the wishes of the board to table this, for further reflection, and maybe going back to your home districts and kind of see what's going on in your home districts in terms of that type of language. If there is a calendar, what does that calendar look like? Or is there more generic type of language? I think that's a great idea. It gives people an opportunity to go back and kind of check in what their local district is doing with their policies.
So to do that,
And the discussion can include whether we want to have a committee on that,
That's a good point.
So to do that, I believe we would need a motion and a second to table this item for further update. So
I'll make a motion, Schmidt, to table it.
I'll second it.
Oh, Bush.
Okay, very well. We've had a motion and a second to table item SB 2021 TAC 39. All those in favor say aye.
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 Okay. I
Aye.
don't think we need a roll call for that, do we, Christie?
Technically, I don't believe you do. However, since most everything else, because we are virtual, is roll call, I would suggest that we do a roll call for it.
All right, let's change this to be a roll call vote. So all those in favor of tabling item 39, please respond during the vote. Christie, go ahead.
Mr. Schrock?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
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 Oh, I lost all my sound there for a minute. Did somebody say something?
Yes, we're asking for your vote to table the motion for SB 2021-039. Yes or no?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Urban?
Yes.
Mr. Shiner?
Yes.
Ms. Maines?
Yes.
Ms. Bretz?
Yes.
Ms. Callaway Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mr. Feldbush?
Yes, and thank you.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Pekarsik?
Yes.
Ms. Schmidt?
Yes.
11 yes, motion tabled.
Very well. Thank you. All right, that gets us to the end of that item, and we're on to comments by citizens on non-agenda items. Again, we have no comments there, and we're down to comments by WIU Board of Directors. I do have a comment here that I'd like to discuss with you. Are there any others? Okay, if not, the item I would like to discuss is next month, March, we have a meeting again scheduled towards the end of the month. Question is, should we consider going back to in-person meetings for that? I guess I kind of want to ask you how you all feel about that. If we go back to in-person meetings, talked with Dr. Conway earlier today, we would probably go to the Fred Rogers room. We would set it up so that there is at least 6 feet separation between all the members of the board. And we'd ask you to wear masks, although you don't have to wear masks if you're making comments. But if you're not making comments, we would ask for wearing masks. And Dr. Conway even suggested having boxed lunches that could be provided rather than having catered lunches and all of the things that go with that. So we don't have to necessarily decide all this tonight, but I was sort of curious to know how many of you would like to go back to in-person meetings. Do you feel it's too soon? Just if you have an opinion, I'd like to hear it.
Hi, this is Annie Urban. As long as those protocols are in place and everyone wears a mask, I have no problem meeting in person. But of course, I'm respectful of how everybody else feels.
I guess I'll comment that as for myself, I expect to get my second vaccine next Tuesday, a week from today. And I don't know where all of you stand in your vaccines, or even if you want to get a vaccine. So that might be a factor in a decision you might make about whether you want to participate in person or not. So if anybody's got any concerns along those lines, I'd like to hear that also.
This is Sue Maines. I personally would like to go back to in-person meetings. I think it's been long enough virtual.
Well, we're fortunate that the numbers of COVID cases have been coming down and we're no longer in the substantial range. And that, coupled with the vaccinations, to me says now it's time to see if we can get back in person. I know I personally have an underlying health condition that caused me concern, but my concerns fall dramatically after getting the vaccine. So I think I should be in good shape. All right, with that, I think we're going to probably try to go in that direction for the March meeting. If anybody's got an objection, you can tell us now, or you can tell me later, or just let us know when next month if you don't care to be there for one reason or another. Okay, that's it. I think there are no more items, so I need a motion and a second to adjourn.
So move, Schmidt.
Second, Maines.
All in favor, say aye.